we create as humans?
No, I was in photo interpretation, and I had a lot of training in that and in cartography, but I didn't. I don't have any training at all in waste in space or any of that.
Yeah. All right. That's just a new trend. It's not. It's we should all be aware of space waste, because what must go up comes down, and they're trying to figure out if they can. Some of these satellites that are old are going out or have been hit by space debris or whatever. Some of them are just sitting out there, and they try to pull them over into a zone. I forgot what X zone or something, but I'm looking at that for 2021 commercial Starship launches, SpaceX, and we're putting more and more things up, satellites up every day, and it's only going to get to be more and more because they're going to have individuals that have their own satellites. And I've known people. When I was living in Hawaii, one of the gentlemen I worked with, my husband and I, he wasn't in the government. He was a lawyer, but he had 5 floors of attorneys only, and he had his own satellite. So people are going to own more and more satellites. And I was just wondering if you knew anything about that. But that's something you can address in the future. Is there's more and more people going to space, and how we can look at who's launching, because SpaceX, that's Elon Musk, and then Sir Richard Branson has Virgin Airlines, and then all kind of other companies. So what do you follow these days, Dr. Scott, that you're interested in with human world? Anything particular?
I read a lot about quantum mechanics and that sort of thing. I try to keep up with what's on, but it's pretty fascinating.
Good. That's my thing too. So that's odd that you and I both do that. I love quantum mechanics, quantum physics, anything to do with consciousness, neuroscience, and how that works with science and the way we talk, not just astronomy and earth science, but space. Now, Ahmad, did you have any direction you wanted to go to? Because I was really curious as to how she helped MUFON in the past and got that journal going. But at the same time, I wanted to, discuss how we in the government and veterans and all that can come together and still feel like we're in service. Because so many of us, once we're retired.
Well, the only thing I wanted her to talk about, with you, was I wanted her to explain what she had experienced with the ball, the light, and I thought it was very interesting, and it was unusual. I haven't heard this before, other than from what she was telling me on my show a while back when I had her on.
Okay, so that was the orb, a ball of light. Doctor, could you expand some more on your theory or your philosophy? We're not asking you to just say this is fact and I endorse this, but because we know you're a PhD and you have to stand behind science and findings of fact. However, we all have a life story, don't we? And I think if you could expand some more on your own personal opinions, would be most helpful to people. Even me, because I've had out-of-body near-death, and I'm trying to put it all together in another category outside of alienology and phenomenology and ufology. I'm not sure what that's going to be, but it's different because not everybody's a contactee, abductee, or feel like they're an experiencer, and they're not just into the nuts and bolts. They're interested in, like you said, quantum physics or what's going on out there. What are we really? Consciousness. Can you expand on that ball of light or a theory, maybe?
Well, my sister and I had some more experiences, if you'd be interested in that.
Sure.
Okay. This is one that it's sort of complicated. It was a very long UFO experience. It took about 3 days and covered a lot of geography. But later, when we were grown up, I was living in Washington, D.C., working for the DIA in satellite photography. And my sister was at Drew University in New Jersey, taking postgraduate work. We decided to travel up, since we were both on that end of the country, we decided to see the New England states and just go on vacation. And so I left from Washington with 2 coworkers and drove up to Madison, New Jersey, where she was, took pictures of them and everything. And then she and I drove on up to Boston. We were going to stay at Boston and see Boston, but we got there early. And so we decided to drive on up and see some of New Hampshire. We took Route 3 up for a ways, and then we thought it was going to be dark pretty soon, so we turned around and came back. It was kind of interesting because we actually were in about the same place as the end of the Betty and Barty Hill sightings where they had the abduction. We came back to Boston and couldn't find a motel room, and so we decided to look around the outer belt. And as we were leaving, we began to see this object south of us travel. It was just one white light, and we could see the airport south of us, which was the Norwood Memorial Airport. We could see the planes coming in from the east and going across the freeway and landing at that airport. And we could see, their wing lights, their green and red wing lights, and their landing lights and different things. We could watch them, and this light was a whole lot different from anything from the other airplanes. We started arguing about it, and my sister kept saying, maybe this is a UFO. And I kept saying, oh no, it's a helicopter blinking its landing lights. I'd never seen anything like it either, but, I thought it must be something normal. So I was thinking, but I'd never seen a helicopter blinking its landing lights either. And so we were arguing, and at that time we both told each other that we'd had UFO sightings, and it wasn't something people talked about, and so both of us didn't say anything about it, but we both had UFO sightings, and we both said that. So we kept following it. We were looking for motels, and so it was going south, and it was ahead of us, and we were going south too. And as we went through a woods, we were on Route 95 going south, which is the main freeway that goes north and south along the coast. There was a woods on the west side, and I looked at, there was a transparent ball in the woods, and it was maybe 50 feet from the car. It was like a basketball, except you could see through it, and there was a light in the middle of it, and it was going through the spectrum of all shades of red and all shades of blue, and I couldn't imagine what it was. And the inside of our car lit up in green, and I couldn't imagine what was going on, why our car would light up in green. And I looked around, I saw green nowhere else except in our car, and I kept looking at that ball thinking maybe it's shining something at us, but I couldn't see any green in it either. And so anyway, then we kept on going, and we resumed our argument, and we were driving along, and finally my sister started yelling at me to pull over, because she said the big object, the other object that we were watching, was going to go over the car, and so was going to go over the freeway. And so I pulled over, and I thought she'd just gone batty. And I pointed my hand out the window because I was going to say, see, it's a helicopter. And instead I saw a real distant falling star. And then this big thing came over the trees. And I changed my mind, decided she was right, that this was not a helicopter. What we could see was 7 big windows. They were square, and they were very clear. It was on the side as it went across the freeway. It was blinking we both sort of discussed whether we were really seeing windows or panels, and we'd seen all kinds of blimps and blimps with lighted sides, and we both thought we were looking into windows, and like we were looking on the inside of it. It was completely silent, even though it was going against the wind direction. And it was blinking in a sequence, such as the first 3 windows would blink off and on, and then all 7 would blink off and on, and then the last 4 would blink off and on, and then it'd start that cycle again. And it had a red light on one end and a green light on the other. These are real dim lights, and they weren't blinking. They weren't like airplane lights. And so we couldn't figure out what on earth it was. And I had a Polaroid camera in my back seat and high-speed film in my trunk. And so I got them both out in the dark, and I was trying to load my camera. At that time, a truck driver pulled over in front of us. I thought this was really a good deal because I thought we'd have another witness. I thought he must have pulled over to figure out what was going on, what that thing was. I had my camera ready to take the picture, and I thought this is an amazing picture because I'm looking at the inside of a UFO. And I thought I could get a good picture of the inside of a UFO, and maybe I could get several and get even kind of try to get it in stereo or something. But anyway, the truck driver came and stood right beside me and asked what we were doing, which was real funny. And so we pointed at the object. We didn't say UFO or anything like that. We just pointed at it like it was an airplane and said, "What is this?" And he turned around, just rotated around the opposite direction to where we were pointing and said, "I don't see anything." And then he turned around and faced me again. And I knew something was wrong then. And then he asked the same question again. And we pointed at it. And he rotated around looking the exactly opposite direction where we pointed, looked up at the same altitude and said, "I don't see anything." And then he turned around and faced me again and pointed to his head, like the crazy sign, and went back to his truck, and then he just sat there and watched us while we were there. Well, another thing I forgot to mention is that right when we first saw it, my sister said that she had seen it shine a light on us, and that she saw the light inside the car. And then that was right after we stopped. Then while I was trying to take the picture and talking to the truck driver, well, she said the object had just suddenly got into another place, that it was there and then it was someplace else. And I didn't notice that at all. I was sort of concentrating on trying to get a picture. And I had high-speed film, and I was afraid I would get lens flares or something from the freeway. And so there was a hill nearby, and I ran up the hill to try to get a good picture. And I did get a picture. I came back. I didn't know I had a picture until I came back and looked at the pictures. And with a Polaroid, you have to coat the pictures and everything else with stuff. But anyway, it was, so I looked at the pictures and knew I had one picture and saved it. And then the object went over to the airport and began to circle the airport. And it would go in this real pattern place where it would turn its going north to south in a semicircle. It would turn its lights on twice, and it'd start south with its lights off. It'd turn them on, turn them off, turn them on, just so it retraced its position. And then from north to south in a semicircle, it was so fast you couldn't even see it. It was just amazing how fast it was. And I heard sounds like a sonic boom or a jet, and I thought it must be a jet. Maybe they're sending jets up. But I found out there were no jets there. And it just kept circling. And so anyway, all the airplanes didn't land then, and we both looked at the airplanes, they were just circling above, and we both discussed